much cash is getting burnt every day. So if you're a global operation and you've got 25,000 people, then suddenly the risk, if you don't really control that, of putting yourself out of business is pretty enormous. So the thing that I find slightly frustrating is, it can be frustrating, right, to operate with all these checks and balances, but if you think like the head of the company, it's completely understandable why they have to do that, sadly.
And just while we're on it, one of the things that you probably know is that it's not profit and loss that kills a company, it's cash flow. So you can go into the red, you get a loan from the bank, or maybe not in the current climate. But if you're burning cash too fast, then no bank will ever do that. Do you spend a lot of time looking at spreadsheets and cash flow, or does somebody else do that and you just look at the bottom line?
No, part of my job is to make sure that the team is run efficiently and at a very, I mean, whether you're a corner shopkeeper or a global design boss, you've got to make sure that on a monthly or a quarterly basis, what you're burning is billable, right? So, and the challenge with the service business, and this is true whether you're a consultancy or if you work for an OEM, right? The productivity of all of those individuals who are getting paid their salaries every day has to make sense. So we have a meeting, thankfully it's only once a week, but we do it once a week. Every single project is reviewed. The billability and the profitability of those projects are reviewed. So I've got a team that put all that together. They go and gather the facts, but we review everything. So it's quite an interesting sort of split brain activity, because at the beginning of the meeting we're talking about design, we're talking about design quality, is the project delivering to the client, you know, so that's all about ideas and quality. At the end of the meeting we're arguing about whether we should bill the bastards another 10,000 rupees. So it's you know, I don't think we should go too heavy on the kind of business bit of it, but it is, you know, James's point about understanding that whether you're employed by a car company or a product company or consultancy, design is still a business. And, you know, so it's not too rude and awakening for you, understanding the connection between business need and what design can do is something that you absolutely have to do. Sooner or later, as you progress in your careers, you will have to understand that, because it has to deliver value to business. And if it doesn't, then either people get fired or the business goes out of business.
Very good. Well, we're not going to do too much business stuff, although there's a little bit of a distinction between how you run your own business and how much you stand in the client's shoes for business. And maybe we'll do a little bit more on the latter one. My final question on your own business is, when you're looking at these cash flow spreadsheets for TATA Elxi, not your clients, we're teaching forecasting here in the postgraduate people. How many months ahead are you looking at your revenues?
I mean, the real answer is probably about 3, because in consultancy, and again, this is a global phenomenon, it's not to do with being an Indian company or an American company. If you're in consultancy, you never quite know when your next lunch is coming from. So, but in actual fact, we do a yearly forecast. If we have signed a client up for a longer term project, then we can plug those numbers in. And we of course have a view for the whole year. We have to, because if we don't plan in terms of resources, amount of business that we need in, as far ahead as a year, then we could get into trouble pretty quickly. But long-term planning is absolutely vital.
Okay, now shifting to the client business side, and we'll get through that quite quickly. Do you have a sort of intelligence unit or a forecasting unit, or just a press cutting service, so that when, I don't know, Daimler-Benz phones you up, or could be Dassault Systems or whoever it is, you know roughly what they're about and where they're going and what they should be doing? Because we're here to help, But much better is, we think the following is the strategy for you, and we've got the designs to help you out. Do you have that?
We didn't, but that's one of the things that I put in place, having learned so much from Jen about the importance of forecasting. Yeah, there's two reasons for it. One, in fact three. One, we need business intelligence for the reasons that I just outlined. Two, we will ultimately sell that as a service. So more in an increasingly complex world, more clients themselves actually don't know what to do. We assume that they might, but even big technology companies seek an independent view of where things are going. The third reason for it is that my team, if there's a slight criticism at all, is that they're too India-centric. India is a bit like a bubble. I mean, if I've once said to somebody, if the whole of the rest of the planet blew up, India would probably be okay, right? You've got plenty of food, you're already used to not having any power. When the monsoon delivers, you've got enough water. And actually it's a fact that the machine would tick, okay? But what comes off the back of that, and I've seen it in some of my colleagues, is let's say there isn't much motivation to actually think globally or look globally. So the small team that I've got that is forecasting is in some sense educating my team about the broader world. And that's actually very important because we need to be a global design consultancy. I mean, we are already, but the vision is to increase that. And if one of my designers doesn't understand broadly what's happening in New York or in Shanghai, we can't do it. So that ongoing core research, understanding where the world is going, culturally, socially, in the arts, all the rest of it, is, and I've said to my senior management, that's one of the pillars, has to be one of the pillars of improving quality, is getting people to think globally. So yes, I've set it up and we will grow it.
So you heard about the C pillar, the B pillar, there's the forecasting pillar and the business pillar, and all of that. Just personally, Nick, what magazines do you read? I mean, do you really value?
I know what you want me to say.
No. I want the truth.
Yeah.
But you already told me.
Well, I'm a lover of tropical fish and birds, so I read tropical fish and... No, I'm kidding. Right. So yes, there's automotive press, so autocar. I love the fashion business, maybe because it's full of beautiful women, so I will buy and read Vogue every month. I buy The Economist. When I get hold of it, I buy a copy of Flight International, see what's happening in aerospace. Occasionally the stupid gadget mags, Stuff or T3, maybe once a quarter because everything looks the fucking same, right? Black, silver, black, silver, black.
Make sure you edit that out.
Yeah, right. But the fact is, and this isn't just put on, I'm hopefully a good designer in the sense that what I'm interested in is very Catholic, very broad bandwidth. So economics, fashion, automotive, all of that stuff. Because it's interesting. And if you read all of that stuff, then it's much easier to join the dots, actually.
And just on the web, just a 30-second addition to that, or the same stuff? Anything particular?
Well, and do you know what's embarrassing? I've even forgotten the name. I use it quite frequently. It's not Flipboard, is it Flipboard? There's a service that is basically an editorial of everything else, not just in design but technology. So that there are a few websites that I regularly will just kind of scan. Maybe it's because I'm an old duffer, James, but I actually prefer to absorb information through a magazine or a book, because I spend so much of my day staring at the screen anyway, whether it's emails or reviewing projects or whatever. There's a delicious pleasure in sitting down with a cup of tea and a magazine quietly. So I get more of it from there, but that's probably just me.
Finally, on the business side, somebody's falling asleep at the back there. No, it's you. How many hours a day do you work, and do you work weekends?
How many hours a day do I work? That varies, but it's never less than 10, sometimes 12 if I'm travelling. It might be 15, 16 hours if you include getting where I'm going. Unlike some of the auto companies in India, we don't work 6 days a week at TATA Elxi, but frankly there's always something that I will do from home, either catch up or I spend a lot of my time currently reviewing projects, so I'm a sort of quality control thing. So on a Friday evening I have 5 or 6 presentations to review, and if I would rather do that with a clear brain on a Saturday morning, that's what I'll do. So yeah, it's pretty hard work, yeah.
Good. Okay, let's change the focus a little bit. Please, while you're doing that, when I had my first job, just to tell you, the head of the design council in England told me in my first week or so, he said, are you taking work home with you? I said, no. No. And he said, if you're not taking work home with you, you'll get nowhere. So immediately, you always see me around here with a bag full of work. It doesn't mean I actually go into the bag, but I'm always hoping that I, one moment I will actually do, and so that's worth, it's hard work, but the more you do now, I think it's fair to say, hopefully, the less you'll do in later life. Now, changing the focus, and we're going to talk about the details of design practice, no doubt, but just before we do that, I think it might be an idea to ask you who your heroes in design are. Who do you, today and historically, and maybe connected with that, which cities in the world do you think are really building a design force? Educationally, studios, general culture, but first, what about the greats?
Well, of course, that's going to be a very tricky question, because actually there's so many of them. There's been some, huge amounts of great design over the years. As a slightly psychotic individual, because I've got, I can like design from all kinds of different sort of eras and styles and so on. I suppose, Raymond Loewy has got to be one of them, because the clarity of some of that design work, even today, is still there. It's very clear. I'm an admirer of people that were actually designer, engineers, stroke technologists. So Buckminster Fuller, if we look that far back, I mean, amazingly informed, a true polymath. He's a brilliant engineer. The old story about asking his mate how heavy the building was. So he had, I can't remember which building it is, but he had a good friend who was an architect, who showed him this building that had been put up and said, "Hey, Bucky, look at this, amazing." And he looked at it and said, "Yeah, how much does it weigh?" So, so this guy, he was an architect, he just put stone there and slabs. But that attitude to efficiency and lightness and use of materials and so on. So, and then of course there are, I guess, Marcello in automotive, Gandini, Pininfarina. I think the Italians still sit there near the top of Mount Olympus of design from an automotive point of view. God, there's so many of them. I mean, the Italians, Ettore Satsos, who's that other delightful guy? Bellini, but the other guy, Castiglione, who I met once, who's just a brilliant, and here's something I should say, because it stuck with me. It's funny what sticks with you. We had, donkeys years ago, we had I was lucky enough to have a session with a guy called Achille Castiglione. And he told us a really simple thing. He said that intelligence and passion is actually a communicable thing through the work that you do. So if a product was developed without passion and without love, then that will show in the product, irrespective of price point or whatever it might be, and you'll get a dead product. And conversely, if it's been born in the right environment and the right atmosphere with people that love what they're doing, then that lives on in the product. And I thought it was a very poetic and philosophical point that once it's, once you commit the resources and the money to producing a thing, and you get it out of your studios and so on, you have to remember that it lives on, and it lives on in places that you can't imagine. Yeah, you do a product, whether it's in Bangalore or London, and it might end up in, bloody southern tip of Chile somewhere, because someone's. So it lives on, and there is a responsibility in that, which he communicated to us very strongly. I wanted to share that because I always remember it. It's about live things versus dead things, even though they're machines. And then it goes on and on. Jonathan Ive, Dieter Rams, yes, some of his stuff is still, just magnificently logical and clear and bullshit free. But as the design business globally has grown, and it has. I mean, when I started out, it's not that long ago. It was a fledgling, almost unknown business. Even the superhero car designers were not known, I think, generally, right? Within the business they were. But today, whether you pick up any publication, read anything online, there'll be something to do with design and innovation in there. And over the years, thousands of designers have been pushed through the system. Welcome to the future, as here you are. And it's kind of everywhere. So keeping track of who's doing brilliant work is getting more difficult because there's more of them. And there are more very good people out there, actually.
Just on that, I'm going to bring you back to sissies. How much do your people make mood boards and cut up design magazines, or is that all over now?
No, it's definitely not over. But what I've said to my people is that inspiration is one thing, but the risk that you will then just duplicate is a little bit too high. But the reason that we still do what I call visual briefings, right, trying to reinvent basically a mood board, sometimes it's too difficult to write something that captures the essence of what a thing's going to be. The only way to do it is to do it visually. So we do that exercise not necessarily to say, oh, I like that radius in this colour, because that's kind of copying, but to say, you know what, as a filter and a check when we get into the concept phase, does what we're doing feel like this? Because that's the feeling that we want from the product. So it's more of an emotional briefing.
An inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, we absolutely do that.
Right.
Sure.
Well, I think that's quite important, with the distinction that he drew, because if you all spend all your time cutting up wallpaper magazine, it's no wonder that so much looks the same. Now, what about the cities, Nick? Good man. Could be. Is Shanghai the powerhouse? Is it Seoul? Is it Bangalore? And why is it? And which are the ones maybe bubbling under? And so you could do your own little chart just while we're improvising. The top 10, 2012, the top 10, 2022. Even to do that, you're moving ahead, because you're thinking, what's happening? Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I think London, fairly obviously, and that's partly because it's saturated with designers and people that are into design and design thinking, so London's definitely on the map. In a slightly different way, if we're talking more about user experience and service design, actually New York is sort of emerging, or the East Coast is emerging as the thinkers, what's the future of interface and so on. There are some very good consultancies in the sort of LA, San Francisco area. Yes, I think Shanghai and a couple of other places in China that I can't remember, they're not big cities, but Chinese government is investing in creative and design parks, and they're bubbling under. Weirdly enough, Australia is dead from a design point of view, because they've got addicted to pulling aluminium out of the ground, I think. So there was, all I'm saying is, as a slight diversion, for some reason, and I need to find out why, maybe 10 years ago, Australia was actually much more vibrant from a design point of view, and it seems to have gone off a bit. weirdly, within India, I think Pune is beginning to be, because of places like this, because of the automotive business, because there's demand for designers, because there is a community of designers doing petrikuchas, and they're meeting and doing all the stuff that happens elsewhere. So, but I think Mumbai will always slightly be dominated by media and movies. There's some fashion there, but you know, Delhi is where the people that steal all your money sit. So I don't know. So it's either going to be. You better edit that as well.
There's quite a lot of editing.
Next time I go to the FRO, they'll say, "Sorry, boss, you're finished." So I do believe that there's a pretty vibrant community in Bangalore that is emerging, but they're smaller companies, and I think over time we will see Pune as a design centre in this country, because it's being fueled by people that need designers. Right?
Okay, we're going to do a second take on that last bit. You know? Well, I don't know how much time we've got, and you know, you've been very generous with it. I think we've still got a bit of time, if you're all right. Plenty of time. I wondered if we could move to one or two practicalities, and then a little bit about the politics of design in the broadest sense. Let me take, everything all right? Well, let me take one practicality, and that is, we've just begun to circulate. I'll let you have it. I think I did let you have it, which is what's happening in Caterpillar now. Did you see that cutting I sent you? And maybe it wasn't very special for you, but it kind of blew me away, you know, what they're doing there. They've got a R&D facility with total virtual cabs, and you get inside the cab virtually, you get inside the engine virtually. They do everything virtually before it goes to iron. They're working 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and they've got a woman running the whole design and research effort, $2 billion, 10,000 people, and she's a woman in a suit, and you know, she's really a powerful lady. So, remembering that, and we talked a little bit about Alias, which technologies for design and which simulations or which data visualizations or which CAD/CAM or which robots, where do you think that some of that is headed, and what should the students keep an eye on?
I'll tell you what you should keep your eye on is, don't ever forget that this thing is the best supercomputer on the planet, and always will be. Don't forget that Alias, ISOM, ProE, all the rest of it, are just tools. So if you're not clear about what it is that you want before you sit in front of the telly, you'll waste a lot of time. The computer will not, the software will not fix your design for you, okay? And that's something I just want to make very clear, because people nod, and then actually what I see every day, not just in India, you know, across the borders, well, you know, I can't really be bothered using this to fix what my design needs to be. Why don't we just get into CAD and see what happens, right? And then, so that's the first thing to say. Do we need these tools? Yes, of course we do, because they do speed things up. You can look at many more options. I think the future of rapid prototyping, this is not a new thing to say, but 3D printing technologies, multi-material systems where you can transition from, you know, rock hard to very soft and back again while you're doing that 3D printing. I mean, people are printing gold. Some people are printing jewelry, right? So there are certain methodologies with resins and sintering where we can produce objects that you couldn't produce any other way, right? So, you know, the old impossible cage within a cage within a cage. That stuff is really fascinating, and that's definitely where it's going. So, but what that means is, the only way you can talk to the device that will make the thing is through a piece of software, whether it's Alias or whatever it is. So that stuff is definitely here to stay, absolutely. In terms of data visualization, I think we will see holographic caves. So to your Caterpillar point. So the like most technology, the promise of truly immersive visualization is about maybe even 20 years old, right? We all remember the old person with the funny glove on, manipulating whatever they're manipulating. It's just taken a bit of time for industry to find a way of doing it usefully, and also for the cost to come from maybe $10 million down to $500,000 for a decent cake. But it's all of that stuff is here to stay, right? But I reiterate, this is something else, old man here, that I tell my guys and lots of people. Concorde, I guess you all know about Concorde, or I hope you do. Concorde was designed and engineered and produced in 2D on manual drawing tables as big as this room, right? So you can, lofting by hand with great long bits of steel. Now, obviously you can do things quicker with fewer people and all the rest of it now that we have these systems. But let's not forget, it's this that drives everything, not the software.
Very good. Any particular materials that you are having a look at, or because I'm not sure I know what you mean by the soft to hard thing, and whether that's in virtual reality or in the kind of CAD/CAM business, or actually in the finished product.
In the finished product. So you've got a section of material that is ABS, is very hard, and then seamlessly these printers can transition that to very soft rubber and then back again. You can print materials with different transparencies, so you can transition from completely opaque to completely clear and back again. So I mean that's it's a version of twin shot molding, but it's twin shot molding plus, because you can have seamless transitions. Yeah. So as soon as you get rid of a tool that ultimately is a piece of hard metal with an edge, you imagine what we're going to see, from footwear to car interiors. It's very exciting.
Very good.
I won't talk about genetic manufacturing, about protein manufacturing, because that's a longer play, but there's some pretty amazing stuff there. If we start thinking about pseudo-living products. So we have synthetic DNA currently. There's machines that will print all of that, and what currently sits in the medical and healthcare domain is going to impact what you're doing when you're my age. I can guarantee you that. There won't be dead materials, there'll be some living materials.
Very good. Well, I was really fantastic, because I was just going to ask you, there's a London design firm called Alloy, who you will know, and in our Australian TATA team are looking at maybe at mirrors in a mixture of aluminium, nickel and zirconium, because that's what Australia's good at. They may have lost the design, and they've still got those metals. Yes. But do you find that, if I just ask, how many of you have not heard of the material graphene? Hands up who's not heard of graphene. Oh, you all know. Oh, no, you know. Right, now we're being a bit honest, right? Graphene was known about theoretically, if I may just... you know about it, Nick, of course. Right.
I eat the stuff for breakfast.
Yes, I was worried about that. It was known about theoretically that you could make a layer of carbon atoms 1 atom thick. And then 2 Russian scientists in Manchester University made it last year or a year before. They won a Nobel Prize, and then the British government gave them an enormous grant of 50 million quid. That might sound like a lot to you, but it's actually peanuts, right? You've got a whole new material, but the upside is that the University of Exeter has done a variant on this. Maybe you don't know this, YC will know, called Graph Exeter. Yes. Or it could be Graph Pune next, or Graph-a-law. But the question I was going to ask is, do you find that chemistry, or the physical side of chemistry at least, and these sorts of things are important for you, of growing importance, something you've got a little bit of a research effort on, or that you talk to maybe whatever the politics, other parts of the TATA group about? Because it's hitting me more, so I guess it's